Hi there, and thanks for tuning in to part 2 of Reflections on 9 months of Wheels Abroad on YouTube. This will be about memorable moments, personal records, and of course the screw-ups. Don't forget to also check out part 1, which is already on my channel. In part 1 of my reflections, I reflected on how I experienced the last 9 months and what I think is the way forward. And this path forward will include a reduced uploading frequency to better manage the time associated with making these videos. As a matter of fact, after this video, the uploading frequency will be twice a month or every 2 weeks. But you can count on me remaining committed to giving you videos in which we explore the world on wheels. In part 2, I'll approach my reflections from a different angle. I'll share with you the best, worst, memorable, whatever moments, personal records, statistics. And let's start with the first memorable moment, the day I made my first video public. This is a video from that moment. I'm still doubting, as you can see, but then I hit the button publish, and there it was. San Francisco biking, November 2023, my first video public on YouTube on Wheels Abroad. What a glorious day. I double checked, there it is. Alright, let's look at some statistics. The channel is very small, not per se in terms of the number of videos that I uploaded, which is 67. But I have a modest watch time by viewers of 467 hours. Still fun to realize that 467 hours worth of people looking at the videos that I made. You can also see that my channel is small considering the number of views, which has surpassed the 10,000 views. Something I'm proud of, but very modest. Number of comments so far is 54. That includes some of my own replies. So transparency here. And of course there is also the famous dreaded likes and dislikes. Well, I have in total gathered 309 likes. And I also gathered upfront about it a few dislikes, but my like percentage is pretty much 98%. And if you look online, anything above 90-95 like percentage is considered good, so I'm happy with this. Yeah, so for those of you wondering and not willing to do the math, that's 7 dislikes total in the whole existence of the YouTube channel. That's not too shabby, I would say. 7 dislikes total. Let me take a minute or so to explain to you what the rest of the video is about and how I selected the footage that you will see. In the meantime, to have somewhat of an entertaining background, the first segment is already playing. It's about San Francisco, but I won't get to it until a minute or so from now, so bear with me. I'm going to show you selected footage from the last 9 months. Now, the selection criteria are not very black and white, but I did make some categories. And I put links to the videos involved in the extended description that accompanies this video. So click on a link to get to the source video that I discussed as a highlight. I sorted them per category in an order of appearance, so it should be straightforward to find your way. Now, regular viewers of this channel know that I love to either bike or inline skate abroad, preferably in cities. But I'll use the 2 modes of transportation interchangeably for the current video. I still have a backlog of videos waiting to be uploaded on YouTube. But most of those are shot before I got a GoPro camera, so they are shot with an iPhone. They involve mostly biking videos because I've been biking abroad for a long time, whereas the inline skating abroad wasn't picked up until like 4 years ago. For the current video, I will focus on the videos that are on YouTube right now, but I'll toss in an occasional traditional historic video here and there, maybe one that will never make it to my channel. I also have some recently shot material that still has to be edited. I may toss in a little bit of those videos here and there. And I'll show a few behind the scenes cuts that will actually never make it to YouTube, except for in the current video. So whenever I use any source that is not yet on YouTube, I will put the unpublished sign on the top left of the screen, like right there. That one. So if I talk about a video that has already been finalized, be it already on YouTube or not, I will show the final video. That also means that the white text you see on the bottom is from the original video and has not been newly added to the current video. Alright, so let's start with the category memorable moments. Beautiful trips, for example. And it's not coincidence that for the last 1.5 minutes or so we've been looking at the same video. It's the San Francisco biking video. Symbolic anyway, because it was the first one on my YouTube channel. But I really also considered that a very beautiful trip in hilly San Francisco. And look at the view over the city from one of the hills. By the way, doing Lombard Street by bike uphill was also a lot of fun. But arguably the most beautiful city I visited to date is Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Its landscape is stunning. Look at this picture. There's the statue, the very famous Christ the Redeemer statue. It's spectacular, I would have to say. There is a lot of climbing involved for views like this. And yes, Rio has its grey sides, its iffy sides, but its landscape is stunning. Normally I go to cities, so I can also hone my technical skills, especially in terms of inline skating. But I do allow myself a park here and there. And here I'm in Yosemite National Park in the States. Look at the view, people. Wow, this was a completely improvised visit. So I had to hurry, but it was worth it, for sure. Being from Europe myself, I know how lovely and beautiful some of these historic downtowns in European cities can be. The problem is a lot of tourists know that too, so you have to pick your time wisely. So here I am at 6:30 in the morning exploring the Duomo Square, the world famous Duomo Square in Milan. There was hardly anybody there. It was awesome. Me and my inline skates. And as a bonus, I found myself back in a Skycam recording that happened to be at that square. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, or here, at the heart, the old heart of the capital of Spain, Madrid. Beautiful. Let's go to a set of moments that are quite varying in nature, but all have one thing in common. They gave me the goosebumps. They really did. Here I am, inline skating in Giza, a huge satellite city of Cairo in Egypt. And I don't know what it was about this moment. It was the things I saw, the things I heard, the settings, everything together. It gave me the goosebumps. It was a quite incredible moment. Go check out the original footage where you will also hear the audio. I've rewatched this segment maybe already 100 times and it's as intense as it was at the start. Now this particular footage will also be featured later on in the current video because I had a major screw up here and it is also the most intense inline skating trip in my whole career. Talking about legendary fragments, here I was in Tijuana, Mexico, the murder capital of the world. I had ventured outside of the downtown area and all of a sudden this army truck with several soldiers and a mounted machine gun on top. That was quite incredible, especially since I had not seen the truck approaching. It came out of nowhere for me. And on top of that, literally seconds after that, my GoPro battery died. So I could have missed this legendary moment easily. Another 6 a.m. trip, this time in West Belfast, where the remnants of the Troubles are still quite visible. And it struck me, the old gate that used to separate neighborhoods, murals, graffiti. And on top of that, only the birds that accompanied me at this time of day. It was really impressive. There's one place in particular that I would like to call surreal. And that was the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I conquered it by inline skate, but man, it was the cold, the wind, the fog, all against me. It was surreal, as if you were on an island in the sky. Look at this second tower only slowly emerging because of the incredibly intense fog. It was awesome and again a goosebump moment. So regular viewers will know that I love to explore cities in their totalities. So not just the beautiful downtowns, the fancy areas, but also the grittier areas, the rougher parts of town. I always do that after some research, of course. So here are a few examples of the rougher areas that I've explored by inline skates or bikes. For example, here is Skid Row in Los Angeles, for sure known as a grittier area. Likewise, the Tenderloin area in San Francisco. Although I have to say, I had heard of the Skid Row district before, but I had never heard of the Tenderloin district. It was an interesting experience to take my inline skates into the Tenderloin district, and it will be featured later on again because I had a major screw up there. Tijuana, Mexico, featured already earlier in this video. Murder capital of the world, so I think we all agree that that at least qualifies as a gritty area. So I did not take this too lightly, but I deliberately went on a Sunday morning and look, people were going about their daily lives. There was a church service ongoing. Across the street there is a park. So despite its reputation, by picking the right conditions and timing, you can actually experience the authentic, normal, regular part of life in the murder capital of the world. I found that to be very instructive. I even hung around in the park that you see over there. It's fair to say that the drug violence that the city is known for is concentrated in the outer suburbs of the city, and even if I could have gone there, I would not have gone there, believe me. In Torino, Italy, I skated through a neighborhood called Barriera di Milano. It's infamous in Torino. And look over here, you see an army truck next to a police car. And later I learned that a few months before I was there, army patrols were initiated, with soldiers patrolling the neighborhood of Barriera di Milano. Of course, the favelas in Brazil are very famous. Now, while biking in Sao Paulo, I did come across a few favelas, but I did not enter them. I don't think that would have been wise. What are some of my most emotional trips, you ask? Let me show you. Here I am inline skating in the city of Bologna, Italy. I lived there in 1997, 24 years before making this recording, and I hadn't been back ever since. This was a very emotional moment when I first laid eyes on the apartment again where I used to live as a young student. During that same stay, I used a rental bike to take the same route I took every day as a student back in the days. That was such a trip down memory lane. Wow. And I was rusty. Navigating through the city of Bologna was not as easy as I thought it would be, based on the fact that I lived there for almost half a year. I have quite a few fond memories associated with the various Boston trips that I did. The reason being that me and a fellow teacher joined 19 students on a study trip to Boston in the United States. And it was awesome. We learned so much. The students, of course, but also us teachers. And I squeezed in a few inline skating trips and one bike trip. And so every time I look at these Boston movies, like I'm doing right now, memories come back of the awesome study trip we undertook to the Boston area. Emotional for a different reason was my inline skating trip down the strip in Vegas. I noticed somebody making a picture of me, a video recording, I don't know, you'll see the person coming up right now, right there in the yellow shirt. And I don't know why I did not go back to him and ask for the footage or the pictures. That would make such unique footage for me, because they would involve a point of view that I have rare access to. And it haunted me for days why I didn't go back. For a little while after this trip, I thought, oh, there was probably a fence in between, as in other parts of the strip, so I couldn't even have gotten to him. But when I inspected my raw GoPro footage, I saw that there was literally no barrier between him and me. I could have gone to him. It haunted me, and it wasn't until a year later in the capital of Uruguay, Montevideo, where I ran into a similar situation. And I did have the opportunity to go to the person and ask for the footage. I was so happy, and it felt like revenge. It really did. Alright, to close off the session on memorable places, here are a few miscellaneous ones in that same category. I did some inline skating in an airport terminal. And you have all the right in the world to say, what? In an airport terminal? Yes. We had some time to kill. I just took the opportunity, and it was fun. It surely was. Now, perhaps equally idiotic compared to inline skating in an airport terminal is inline skating in a subway train. But that's exactly what I'm doing right here. Disclaimer, this is in my hometown of Amsterdam, so formally not abroad. But every now and then I share an Amsterdam video on my YouTube channel. I don't know what my fellow passengers were thinking, but they probably thought I was nuts. I skated for the full length of the subway train, which is over 100 meters. It was fun. Another noteworthy trip would be that time when I traced the origins of a medieval tale, the one of the Pied Piper. That was interesting in its own right, because I knew the tale already from when I was a kid. Let's move to the next big category, that of personal records I've set in my Wheels Abroad career. First two examples, I value to say, also belong to the previous category of memorable moments. The first one being Seoul, the capital of South Korea. I took my inline skates to Seoul, and one day I did inline skating along the River Han. You see an aerial picture here of the city dissected by the River Han. That trip, that inline skating trip, amounted to 37 kilometers and is still the longest inline skating trip I've done abroad. I've done longer ones in the Netherlands, where I'm from. Moreover, I value to say another memorable moment that took place here was on this bridge, the Mapo Bridge, because right here is the first time that I ever thought, maybe I should share my videos with other people. YouTube was not in my mind yet, but just the very first thought of sharing videos. And that brings me to the shortest inline skating trip that I've ever done. And on one hand, it's almost pathetic to call this a trip. On the other hand, it's a symbolism that counts, and that is also why this is such a memorable trip. Because guess what? It took place at the world famous pyramids of Giza in Egypt. Here they are. You gotta agree, that's a very impressive place to even do some inline skating. Here's my guide, Rasha, and she helped me out. I think she thought this was fun too. An unusual request, so I took my inline skates with me. Here I'm introducing my trip, and here I go, people. Some inline skating at the Great Pyramid of Giza, and that was it. Just a few meters, maybe 10, 20. Another extremely short one, bordering pathetic, took place in South Korea in the city of Daegu. This has not been uploaded yet to YouTube. I took the train from Busan to Seoul, and I got off at this train station, unpacked my inline skates and did 100 meters or so. That's it. I've been talking for the full duration of the final video, the last 30 seconds. That's how short it is. So how about the longest and shortest bike trips? Well, the longest one currently on my channel is also, once again, Seoul, the capital of South Korea. I biked for 61 kilometers through the city and its suburbs. However, the longest bike trip of my whole Wheels Abroad career took place in Paris, 76 kilometers, also to the suburbs, but of course also doing, for example, the roundabout at the Arc de Triomphe. That's what you see happening right here, but it's not on my YouTube channel yet. The shortest bike trip on my channel right now is that in Rio de Janeiro. I did actually 2 biking trips in Rio de Janeiro. And the first one was done with a, let's say, suboptimal bike. So it didn't get very far, 31 kilometers. The next day I got myself a mountain bike. And that was awesome when I climbed the hills of Rio de Janeiro with that. But still, beautiful views. It's Rio, right? The shortest bike trip of my whole Wheels Abroad career also involved biking near alligators. Now that was a first. It took place in Everglades National Park in Florida, USA, and here is a shot of the bike itself. You can already see, I guess, it's not a very optimal bike. Still, I did some biking for 24 kilometers in the park, but it's the shortest one ever. How about what I perceive to be the most intense and least intense inline skating? Well, the most intense, hands down, was an inline skating trip I made in Giza, Egypt. It was incredibly intense, but it was so much fun, and truth be told, never really felt unsafe. I felt in control. Maybe that's also the experience, of course, that starts kicking in at some point. But I was tired after I had finished this trip, for sure. At the other end of the spectrum, we have, of course, the least intense inline skating trip. And I thought about it hard, and I think it must have been in Acadia National Park in the US. My buddy taped me, so take a look. How easy can it be? Empty roads, nobody there. How about the most intense bike trips that I've done? Well, of all the videos that are currently on my YouTube channel, I think we have a shared number one. Cairo, the capital of Egypt. Now that's quite something for biking, I tell you that. It's chaos in the traffic right there. Continuous honking of horns, etc. It was so much fun. And I managed. It's fun to also note here that the video that you're currently looking at is by far the most viewed video on my YouTube channel. Cairo Biking 2. Maybe that is because people are interested in finding out how it is to bike in Cairo away from the city center because I really went into the suburbs here. Now talking about continuous honking of horns and chaos in traffic, here's the other number one, Delhi, the capital of India. That too was quite something, just like Cairo. I didn't have a GoPro camera yet at the time, and that's such a pity. That would have been an awesome city to make GoPro videos in. I cannot move on without mentioning this other famous city in India, Mumbai. It's not yet on my YouTube channel, but it is the most intense bike ride I've ever done in my life, and in fact, it's the most intense city I've ever been in my whole life. It is a frontal attack on all senses. It wears you down, this city. It wears you down. At the same time, it's very impressive and very confronting, and I really enjoyed this bike ride. There's even an interesting point of view in somebody else's mirror here. So I'll find myself a good time to upload this record video on my channel. Least intense biking? Maybe Bremen, Germany. In fact, it felt like we were back home in the Netherlands. It was flat terrain, the weather was also like back home, well-developed biking infrastructure, so Bremen making the list as being the least intense biking experience I've had is a compliment. There were bike lanes all over the place. Here's another really great example of a so-called Fahrradstraße. Roads where bikes have priority over cars. We have those back home as well in the Netherlands. So yeah, that was the least intense biking trip probably that I've had, but still very enjoyable. Kudos to Bremen. How about the highest temperature I ever inline skated or biked in? Well, that is 44.4 degrees Celsius in Buckskin Mountain State Park in the United States. I did some inline skating there in 44.4 degrees. That was like a furnace, really. It felt like a furnace, and it was so hot, the GoPro camera shut itself down because it was too hot. I never had this notice before, and I've never had it afterwards. Well, the lowest temperature I ever inline skated or biked in is a little bit harder to determine. I didn't keep track of it, but I think it must have been in Acadia National Park. Judging from the way that I was dressed with the scarf, etc., it was also very early and located at the sea. So I think all those factors must have contributed to a rather chilly temperature. So of course, since the main focus of my biking and skating efforts is big city life, I have this kind of bucket list of doing the biggest cities on the planet. And if you look at the list that is on Wiki, I'm not doing so bad actually. In fact, I've done the top 3 already and a few more in that top 10. So you just saw Delhi, that is number 2. What you're looking at right now is number 3 on that list, Shanghai in China. Huge city. I've biked there, but it's really long time ago and I only have pictures. This was at the time that a smartphone was not so common. But I'm also very happy to announce that I've biked in the largest city on the planet, according to Wikipedia at least, Tokyo in Japan. In fact, I did 2 biking trips there, and it's so safe there that I could leave the bike unlocked outside the hotel during the whole night. Incredible. You could not pull that off in my hometown of Amsterdam. Biking in Tokyo was a really awesome experience. Huge city, but so organized. So safe. Time for the last category of the day. Screw-ups and mishaps. And this may in fact be your most favorite category. In the back a San Diego video is playing, and it will eventually lead up to the first mishap that I'll show you, but that will take a minute or so. I first want to explain a few things. Of course, a lot of unanticipated things happen during the Wheelsabroad trips, be it inline skating or biking. It's part of the deal, it's part of the setup of the trips. It's fun. Every now and then the camera is on when a major screw-up or mishap happens, and I regularly incorporate those mishaps in the final video. So here's a collection of screw-ups and mishaps that happen to be recorded. I also have screw-ups and mishaps that are only present in my memory, and I guess you will never see those. But enjoy the ones that have been taped. So here's the first one. For starters, I was doing my thing at a tram station in San Diego, United States. And look what happened. I dropped my GoPro while recording. And look at the footage it got of me. Over here. That's awesome. The GoPro survived and I could continue, and I value to say this has been the only time when I dropped my GoPro camera during any of my trips. Alright, more technical screw-ups. One of the Madrid videos on YouTube has been shot almost exclusively in time-lapse modus. Accidentally, I emphasize. I was still relatively new to the GoPro camera. I managed to obtain a few non-time-lapse parts like this one, but they're not the most interesting parts of that day. A major technical screw-up happened in Tijuana, Mexico. You can imagine that if you're inline skating with a GoPro camera at your chest, that the resulting footage will be shaky. Luckily, the GoPro camera has a built-in stabilization option, which is great. And somehow, when I started inline skating in Tijuana, I had turned this option off. So when I got home after this trip, I found out, much to my dismay, that all the footage was shaky, like you see on the screen right now. This is the raw footage. I had to do some serious editing, resulting in the video that you see now, where at least the shaky character was reduced somewhat, although at the expense of resolution. Another painful technical glitch. This is me climbing the hills of Los Angeles, of Hollywood, to the famous Mulholland Drive, but all you see are my knees, the road and the bike. Here I learned that the GoPro in a chest mount is best mounted upside down and at an angle when you're biking. I've applied that lesson ever since. Recently in Buenos Aires, this is still unpublished, I discovered another way to technically screw up videos, and that is by accidentally putting the lighting setting of the GoPro camera at +2, resulting in very dark movies. I think what happened is, just like with the Tijuana setting that went wrong, that I put my camera away for a second while it's still on, and it has a touch screen, so you know what happens. You're setting your GoPro settings in the pocket, accidentally. Alright, the next screw up, the only fall that made it to the YouTube channel. Notice that patch of asphalt right there? It's terrible, it slows the skates down, and there I go. Falling in the Tenderloin area of San Francisco. That was fun. Here's that same type of nasty asphalt again. I barely managed to keep my balance. That kind of asphalt is really deceptive, people. Another near fall, this time in Tijuana, Mexico. I was doing my thing, taking a corner right here. And look at this scene. It was well taped. Me almost losing my balance, wow. It was a combination of sand on top of poor asphalt. Another near fall, this time in Giza, Egypt. Something got stuck in between the wheels of my inline skate. And I could barely keep my balance. I almost fell. And all the while there was traffic behind me. So while I was desperately trying to keep my balance, they were hitting their horns like, come on dude, move on. Yeah, so a piece of rubber got stuck between the wheels of my inline skate. Here's the culprit. Now get ready for what I think is the most hilarious screw up. Over here in Santa Monica, I was about to lose my balance because of that uneven pavement there. And in an attempt to keep my balance, I grabbed the nearby vegetation over there. Well, it was my lucky day because that vegetation had thorns all over it. So I grabbed a bunch of thorns basically. You see blood on my hands. I had to get out some thorns. It must have looked like a slapstick. There were even blood stains on the pavement. I think I am zooming in on it right now. Yeah, there it is. Fresh blood stains. Well, since we're on the topic of blood, let me show you this as of yet unpublished video. It was in Santiago, Chile. That fence over there had really sharp edges, but I didn't realize it. And I grabbed it when I was slowing down for a traffic light. This was the result. The blood had already been removed by then. Yeah, that was also a little bit of a bloody scene. Here's another piece of video that never made it to YouTube. Tijuana, Mexico again. I was doing my thing, inspecting a neighborhood, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere basically, I fell. Now it's not a coincidence that this happened in Tijuana, Mexico, because by that time it was the city with the worst asphalt I had inline skated in. This fall was completely unexpected. But the video was already so long that I decided to leave this one out. The next footage is quite painful, metaphorically speaking. I showed you some footage earlier of me inline skating at the Giza Pyramid. That was footage made by somebody else. You're looking at my own footage right now. And I don't know why I kept rotating the phone camera. I really don't know. It took me serious editing afterwards to even get something useful out of it. Such a symbolic and special place. And I screwed up. Now, inline skating and biking each have their own different vulnerabilities. With inline skating, you can get stuff stuck between your wheels. With biking, of course, you have the risk of a flat tire. It happened 3 times in my career. Madrid, Budapest, and here in Santiago, Chile. Because look at how I enter the sidewalks over here. In a rather amateuristic, suboptimal way. A flat tire was the result. And the mood went down, obviously. Here I'm slowing down, realizing I have a flat tire. Yeah, that sucked. Luckily, across the street, there was a bike shop. My luck, really, and they fixed the tire. Alright, so the last screw up of the day. Here I am inline skating in Madrid. And I was planning to explore the nice area of Madrid Rio, where I made a navigational error. Instead of left, I went right. And I immediately thought, this doesn't look like the Madrid Rio area. But I kept going, and it brought me to a, let's say, skate unfriendly area. It was a nice technical challenge, but here I almost fell. This is the last near fall of the video. Incidentally, this is also the video with the lowest number of views. I uploaded it very early on, and somehow people don't get to it. It only has 8 views. So that's some sobering news that I used to close the whole video. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I think are highlights and screw-ups and records, etc. It gives you hopefully a glimpse of what my channel Wheels Abroad is about. And if you want to see more, then go to my channel, obviously, or to my webpage, wheelsabroad.nl. Enjoy!